do tell me hi and hello, and it's worth it that you're staying inside right now in the chat. We're going to be talking about setting your music teaching rate. So it's an important subject. It is absolutely worth staying out of the sun for me. And look, I've got my summer shirt on, so we're not missing out on anything. So I'm going to be talking about setting your music teaching rates, as I said. We're going to be talking through how you decide what they are and how to make changes if that's what you're looking to do right now. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. But if you're just joining us, if you're live right now, let me know in the chat. Love to see your highs and hellos coming in. And also let me know what you want to learn about setting your rates, what you want to learn about fees in general, and what questions I can answer for you today, okay? So before we get started with any of that, I want to give you a few bits of housekeeping. First of all, this is the last time I'm going to mention this. We have our 100th episode of the podcast coming up. Episode 100, that's a big deal. The podcast is one of the newest things we've added, which is why it's only at episode 100. The blog is at several hundred posts already. But it's coming up on episode 100. It's a little baby and it needs nurturing, okay? So I would love if you would help me to celebrate it. Help me celebrate episode 100 by recording a story about a lesson you learned in the last year. Because I want to put them all together into a beautiful celebration of lifelong learning and teachers all over the world. So you can record your stories at colourfulkeys.ie/100. That's just a case of going there and you'll see a button right on the page to record your story. If you really want to give me it in text format and have me read it, you can absolutely do that too. Just email me. I really want to hear your stories. Make sure to send them in as soon as you possibly can because I'm going to have to record that in 2 days. So that's why this is the last time I'm mentioning it. Last chance, please record your stories for me for our 100th episode celebration. The other 2 bits of housekeeping are the schedule for this show. This is happening 3 times a week. If you're joining us for the first time, huge warm welcome to you. I hope you will stop back again to join us for another one of these chats. They are on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and the topics are basically decided by you guys in conjunction with me in regards to what you really need the help the most with right now. And one of the topics that came up last Friday was setting your rates, deciding on fees and increasing your fees or changing policies, that kind of stuff. So we want to cover all that yuckiness today. On Monday, we talked about playing games in online lessons. That was another request. And on Friday this week, we're going to be talking about technique because a lot of you were asking about that. Teaching technique in online lessons. Can it be done? Yes, it can. And we're going to explore strategies for that on Friday. So I hope you'll stop back again then. In the meantime, right now, loads of comments are coming in. Thank you so much for adding those. Let me know if you're just joining us now what you want to know about in regards to setting rates or any other burning questions that are on your mind right now today. The last little bit of housekeeping before we get going with our rates discussion is the coupon code, because I want to make sure you have access to the resources you need right now. So if you want to get a 1-week trial to our Vibrant Music Teaching membership, you can sign up at vibrantmusicteaching.com using the code online. That will give you a 7-day trial. People always ask me when I mention this, but am I committed to longer than 7 days? No, you're not. You can cancel it at any time. That's why it's a trial. Otherwise, it would be totally unfair. I don't get trials that you're actually committing to longer than that. So you're only committing to 7 days. It will automatically recharge you after that 7 days if you don't cancel. But you can cancel yourself. No one has to help you to do it. There's no rings and hoops to jump through. You just press the cancel button and that's the end. Okay? So there's no commitment beyond that 7 days, but if you do want to stick around, we would love to have you as part of the community. So if you need access to resources right now, that is where you get it, vibrantmusicteaching.com, and put in the coupon code online. And I lied because I said that was the last piece of housekeeping today, but this actually is because I have a webinar tonight, this evening, my time. Sorry, might be in the afternoon for you. It's in 4 hours. So if you want to see me again today, you can come along if you've not got enough of me. after today's session, you can sign up at vibrantmusicteaching.com/relevant to come along to that webinar. We're going to be talking about how to choose repertoire that is relevant for your students. Repertoire that they love, that is at an appropriate level. Okay, so that's the discussion happening tonight. But right now we're about to talk about fees. So let's see what you want to learn about. Maggie said, I want to raise my rates, but unsure if that's even possible. What do you think? Absolutely going to cover that for you, Maggie. Thank you for that. Rebecca said, I didn't raise fees for 2 years and I'm doing it now. I'm also changing policies about registration fees. I'd love to know how best to tell families. Great, we're going to go through that for you, Rebecca. Great to have you here. Okay, Cherry, sorry. You're just getting started, I think, so you're going to be setting up your own private studio, what rates and payment plans to use. It's a big topic, but hopefully we're going to help you with that today. Janelle, great to have you here, Janelle. Welcome back. I went to all-inclusive last year and was originally thinking I'd raise every few years, but I heard a smaller increase each year, wondering if that's a better move. Okay, we'll dive into that too. Gabrielle, so great to have so many of you here. I teach piano lessons in a school. When the schools are closed due to the pandemic, we offered video lessons and lowered rates, but I lost half my students. Oh, that's a sticky situation, Gabrielle. It's always tricky. I mean, some things are definitely easier when you have a school running things for you, and I'm sure the teachers who work for me would agree that I take a lot of things off their plate, but it does mean you have less control. So that's kind of the trade-off there. Let me see what that... Laurie, my burning question is, how much do you charge for a travel fee? Oh, interesting. I hadn't got that on my list, Laurie, but if I don't come back to that, let me know. We'll get to that as it comes up. Okay, so in terms of rates, I thought we'd look at a few different areas, and starting with if you're just now setting your rates or if you're wondering whether you're charging the right amount, which is, an impossible question. Pricing is not logical. It doesn't make sense. It's something we have to do with a pinch of this and a bit of that and a bit of luck. Sorry to tell you that, but that's how pricing actually is in the real world. There's no magic equation. I can't tell you exactly what to charge based on any factor. You are going to have to set it for yourself, but there's a couple of things you can look at. One side of things is what we would call customer-based pricing. And that is, in our case, looking at local rates in your area to see what other teachers are charging and what people are willing to pay. Okay? So that's one side of things. And then the other side of things with pricing for us is product-based pricing, which for us means, what do you need to be paid? And hopefully those two things align, but maybe they don't, and maybe you have to come down somewhere in the middle. Tell me in the chat, by the way, whether you've considered one of those sides and not the other, or whether you found a balance between those two, because I'm curious which way teachers actually thought about their rates. Teachers who already have started teaching, how did you decide your rates? Was it more of the looking at the local rates and the customer-based pricing, or was it the product-based pricing, meaning you started with what you need to charge and just went from there? Yeah, it's an interesting one. This is something we looked at in fashion college. If you don't know, I have a degree in fashion design, so that's the background there. And when you're pricing clothes, those are the two ways that you go about it. You either say, okay, what are people willing to pay for a dress that looks like this and is like this and is in this market? And then work backwards and say, how can we make a dress that is profitable at that amount? Or you say, well, I'm going to make this dress and it's great. How much am I going to have to charge in order to make the profit that I need to make on that? And in fashion, those two figures can be pretty wacky out. They can be wildly away from each other. Now, luckily in piano teaching, hopefully the figures should align more closely because it is a local rate, right? It is based on your local market, unless you're teaching in the global market, and then it's a whole other story. Elizabeth said, I have checked in with local rates, but only recently began examining my needs as part of that equation. Yeah, a lot of people come to that factor later. But if it's not worth it to you, then maybe the people around you are just charging the wrong amount and you should be the outlier. Yeah, that's a common one. And I would encourage, like, totally no judgment on you there, because that's how a lot of us will start, is we charge less than whatever the going rate is, because we're new and we're just getting started and all of that crack. But actually, it's not helpful to our industry or you, or the kind of clients you're going to get. If you go too low, if you aim to just undercut the market, you are likely going to get clients who are looking for good prices. Not you, not what makes you special and amazing and unique, but just the best price. They just went with the cheapest one. And those are not the students and the parents that you want in your studio. You want the people who come to you, seek you out, and want what you offer. You want the people like the dad in my studio this morning, who they're uploading their concert videos this week for our studio recital on Saturday. And he apologized for being late and all of that. This is the deadline today. But he sent through, I was expecting it to be a rushed job. And they're one of my favorite piano families, let me be honest. Because they always put in that extra effort and really value what I do. And he had edited together like a multi-angle video of his son playing. I just thought, yeah, these are the people. These are the ideal clients. These are the people I love having in my studio. And luckily, almost my entire studio is like that. And that's because I don't market based on price. I market based on who I am, and people seek me out for what I offer that is completely different to what's around me. So don't undercut is the long story short version of that. Let me see a few other comments about how you set your rates. Ooh, changing the sizing there. When I moved to teaching full time, I did more research and balance between local rates and how much I needed. Yeah, that's great. I'm considering raising my rates either this summer or fall. Okay, so for the new teachers out there who are watching, a lot of people who are watching right now have been teaching a while, and I want to cater to your needs, and we're going to get on to some other factors right here. But if you're just starting, take a look at both those things separately. Or let me say, also, if you're thinking, I have no idea whether I set effective rates or not, take a look at both those things separately and see where they balance out for you. If they both align beautifully, if you need to make the same amount that's the going rate, amazing. But if you are just starting out, please don't undercut everyone around you, because that drags our industry down. It's not helpful for you. It's not helpful for them. Now, here's what I want you to do from here. I want you to start with one rate and calculate the others from there. So, too often, I think, well, you can let me know if you've ever gotten bogged down in this. Maybe this is a unique factor for me. But every year I rebalance all my rates. And I'm pretty confident in my math skills. But every year I come across one from last year that when I recalculated it, it's slightly different than in relation to the others than what it was last time. And that's because I do offer quite a few different options in my studio, but the only thing that makes this work for me is setting one rate first and then calculating the others from there. So depending on how many choices you have in your studio, this may or may not be complicated. But I would encourage you to start with one and decide all the others based on percentages from there. So that could just be that you set an hour rate and the 30-minute rate is half that, and the 45-minute rate is 75%, and that's fine. But there can be a lot of different factors there. So if that's the case, you can end up going back and forth between things. So I'd just encourage you to set one rate and know what it is. And then never tell your clients that rate. That is not for them. That is for your calculation. So I'm not suggesting that you charge for half-hour lessons at each lesson. by saying that, but you should have a rate for each half-hour lesson so that you know what it is, so that you know what you're making from that teaching time. Does that make sense? I hope so. Yeah, let me know if you have questions about that and how I calculate that. But it is always going to be about balancing out these things. And we had some questions before about raising every year, so I'll just give you my thoughts on that, which is yes. Every single year I raise my rates. And that could be by 1%. No, let me say this. Every year your rates should change. I don't like rates sticking at the same amount every year or one year to the next, because it sets the wrong expectations. I like them to change, and they can change based on multiple factors, and they can actually be the same and still change. For example, you can still be charging the same amount, but you can per lesson, but you can add another lesson, and so therefore it goes up, or you can add a group workshop that's included in the tuition, and therefore it actually goes up, but actually you kept your rates the same on a per hour basis. So there's different factors there, but I've never left my rates the same from one year to the next, and I won't be doing that this year either. I will be raising a very small amount this year, not a huge amount, but it will be changing. And it's also there are fewer lessons next year. Yeah, that's right. Because of the way the weeks work out, there's actually one less. Yeah. One, I think it is. Yeah. And I'm also adding group workshops next year and changing a whole bunch of other stuff, which I've detailed on the podcast episode I did about changes I'm making next year. But the main advice I would give you is change them every year. And you can let me know your thoughts on this. I'm not, the sage preaching from on high. I don't have all the answers, but this is what I think. This is what makes sense to me, because then parents don't come back to you expecting the same rates because you kept them the same for 4 years, and then there's this huge jump. And that hurts. Whereas changing 1% or this way or that way doesn't really factor into anything for them, and no one balks at it. Now, the other factor that I want you to consider right now when we're in this re-rate setting period, that's an odd phrase, is your policies. So we're in this period, I should say, in this hemisphere. If you're down in Oz, I doubt you are right now because it's late, but maybe you're in Perth and you're watching, then this is not the period when you're probably resetting things, but for us it is, because we're about to head into summer. Things change, the changes go the smoothest if we make them over summer. So the other thing I want you to think about right now are your policies. What policies do you have that are not working for you and your clients, your students, your parents? What are you doing that isn't making sense? Change it now. It's your business. If it is your business, that is. It's your business. You get to decide how it runs. And so if you're currently running around doing makeup lessons, please stop. Please. It hurts me to see teachers doing that, because it's not a favor to your students. Okay? It's not something that you're doing and it makes their life better. It honestly doesn't. What it does is it drains your energy that you can't then give it to other students. Okay, give me a like on this video if you're making some changes this year. If maybe you're teaching makeup lessons and you're going to change that. If you're making other policy changes, or if you're going to raise your rates or change them in some way, let me know and tell me what you're doing in the comments. Cindy says, increasing lesson fees but then offering more extras is what I've been thinking. Yeah, you just need to carefully balance it, Cindy, in terms of it still being worth it to you. It has to still be worth it. So you can't just, increase, add so much extra value that you're not making as much as you were. So be careful that you're calculating how much you're going to make as your actual rate, your effective hourly rate, versus just your teaching rate. Because we throw in a lot of extra hours for our students, and we need to be cognizant of that when we're setting our fees. Maggie, you also have less weeks next year, but adding group workshops. Yeah, okay, so we're matching. High five. There's a lot of different changes you can make year upon year, and you have to think about the issues in your studio and what's not making sense and what is making sense. But it's the perfect time to think about it right now. Even though we're going through this period, even though things seem crazy, we still need to think about the long game for our studios. Elizabeth, I had a wonderful parent dialogue with me about how rescheduled lessons can be just as much of a headache for parents as it can be for us. So grateful for the chance to dialogue. Yeah, that's a great comment, you know. Anything, absolutely anything, can be framed as a benefit for parents rather than a detraction. So you need to be careful about how you phrase things. Which leads me to my final point. And do keep adding your questions because I will come back to them. Which is about how you communicate changes. The very simple way to put this is value, then statement. And what I mean by that is, first, you're going to demonstrate the value that you've given and make it top of mind for your parents. And you can do this by, sending out a newsletter, having a concert where you talk about all that you've done this year, but in some way you need to remind them a little bit, nudge them, about how much they get from you outside of just regular lessons, how great their child is doing, how wonderful the experience is in your studio. And then, second step is statement. And I mean statement. Don't send out an email that says, oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to raise my rates because my rent has gone up due to coronavirus. I don't see how that would happen. But the point is, don't apologize. Just state it. Just simple fact. It is so hard to do this. So I want to acknowledge that. It's not easy to go to people and say, here are my rates for next year. The end. You don't say the end. But to actually just say things as a statement, it is really hard, and it can be even harder in writing, not to go, I just want to just please, sorry. And I'm the most guilty of that. It's so hard not to do. Because, well, I'm Irish, and we apologize for absolutely everything. It always makes me think of, any of you ever watch How I Met Your Mother? There's an episode in that where the Canadian character is takes another character to a bar that is like a Canadian bar. They're in New York, and she takes him to a Canadian bar, and she purposefully bumps into someone, backs into someone, and then he apologizes to her. She basically shoves him, and he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Well, sorry, right? Sorry. And they both apologize to each other. Ireland's a bit like that too. We apologize at every opportunity that possibly comes up. And so it is really hard not to say, I just wanna, please, thank you, goodbye, thank you, sorry. But you have to just say it as a statement so that you come across as not apologizing for it, not saying that it's a bad thing, because actually it's a good thing because you can offer more if you charge more. That's just the fact. You can invest in your professional development, you can spend more time planning lessons, you can be a better teacher if you charge more. And so it's not something to apologize for, and you need to just send it as a fact. Here are the things, and then you can absolutely discuss it with parents if they come back to you with issues with these things, but any change just needs to be stated. Simply. Because otherwise you're just confusing people as well when you talk around things so much. Janelle, how many lessons per year does everyone do? It's generally 39 in my studio now, Janelle, so I'm pretty close to you. It varies a lot based on where people are. In some parts of the States, only about 30 works out as a standard teaching year, so yeah, it can change a lot. Laurie said, so true, when interested parents ask what I charge, I just say the rate and then bite my tongue and clap my mouth shut with my hands. No excuses or justifications. It takes practice. It does. It takes some practice, as do all things, as we know. Right? It takes some practice, but you will get there. And yeah, you will get through it. You will manage to just state things as fact eventually, but it takes some courage and it takes some practice. Janelle, I'm about to rewrite the studio policies for the new students, already wrote yearly update for existing students. Do you think parents expect COVID-related info in our policies now? I don't... Policies is probably not the best place for that, other than what I already have in my policy. So if you don't have this already, Janelle, I would say put in your policies that you have online lessons as a backup plan for XYZ. Okay? That's already in mine, so if it's not in yours, put that in. It was there for things like snow, but it's now there also for pandemics, turns out. But other than that, I don't think it belongs in policies. I'm a one-page policy woman, and so I keep policies as short and succinct as possible. Policies cannot cover every eventuality, and they shouldn't, and you shouldn't expect them to do the work for you. Policies are really there for you to set with yourself what you're going to do and to have as a backup for your statements. But you have to do the communication. Policies don't do that for you, and therefore, no, I wouldn't put anything specific to COVID into the policies. Rebecca, getting rid of makeup lessons was the best decision I ever made. Yeah! Everyone watching, give us a like on the video if you agree with that. If you've switched away from makeup lessons and it's made a big impact on your studio. I know it has for a lot of teachers. Joy, if I do flat rate, what do I do about students who are out of town, planned or unplanned, assuming we're able to start travelling again at some point? They miss their lesson because they chose to go out of town. That's the fact. Now, I will say that I don't have standard teaching weeks in the summer. I definitely think it's important to have some flexibility there, and you have to be aware of what goes on in your area. Like if everyone takes winter break and yet you want to teach a little bit, you're going to have to be flexible there, or any other eventuality like that. But in terms of them missing during the school year, they're also choosing to miss school, and people do that sometimes, and that is their decision. They should be aware that they're choosing to miss stuff, and that's the fact. Janelle, totally on board with short policies. Yeah, yay for one-page policies. They're the best. Where do I put all the extra info that you don't want in your policies but want to answer the FAQs? So that's about it communicating over time. It depends on the info we're talking about, Janelle. A big part of that is the first interview, the meeting that I have with new prospective students. That's where a lot of that info goes. And when I communicate that up front, that works well. It also goes in emails that I send out gradually over time and in regular old face-to-face conversations that we have at lessons or, at the door, that kind of thing. Whoa, up to 48 lessons a year, CJ. That is a lot of teaching weeks, but good on you. Okay, I said I would come back to your travel rates, Laurie. So the way that works in my studio right now is a bit different to how it used to work, because I now have other teachers who do the traveling lessons. I don't do them. So when it was me, originally it was a pretty low travel fee, and that was because I was building my studio and I just needed students. And so I did offer it for not a crazy extra amount. It was still there was a fee of, obviously, a delivery charge, as it were, but it wasn't a huge amount. And then I stepped it up enormously because I mostly just wanted to get rid of the traveling students. That's the secret. No, I think they knew that. So basically the option was pay me for all of the time that I spend in the car at my same teaching rate, which is, ended up being very expensive lessons, or change and come to me. I'd love to have you in the studio. And so most people at that stage chose not to pay the extra the traveling rate because it was a lot, right? To pay someone, say they have a half-hour lesson or even a 45-minute lesson, and they're going to have to pay me for 40 minutes of driving. They basically have to pay double. But I think if you are in a position that I was in, that's important. If you can teach either in the studio or at students' homes, and you're reasonably full or you're getting to be that way, you have to charge, or even right from the start, really, that's what I should have done. You have to charge for your time because that is time that you could be teaching and you are not. So that's what I did. I didn't factor in petrol costs. Now I have a hybrid car, so that wasn't a lot, or wear and tear of the car, that kind of thing. You can also go that direction, but I think charging at your teaching rate is really the most sensible for that kind of circumstance where your time is in demand. Now that other teachers are doing that, we have a set standard travel rate and travel radius, and they get paid that per household, and so that's a pretty flat standard fee, sort of a delivery charge again. Laurie, yes, I want to charge 100 for a travel fee. Yeah, I mean, if that's what it works out to, that's what it works out to. I often have conversations like this where teachers say about this or anything else, and they say, well, no one would pay that, so I just can't list that rate. Well, you don't know that. And if that's the only way that it's worth it to you, then that's what you put as your rate. In some cases. I mean, in that circumstance where you can get enough students or close to enough to make a good income to come to your home, then you have to charge a travel fee that makes it worth it for you to travel. Otherwise, don't list anything if you like. But if you are willing to travel for a certain fee, then list it and see what happens. Some parents might be willing to pay for that convenience. You might be surprised. I think a lot of teachers underestimate the average income in their area. I think we think people make less than they do. And I think part of that is a symptom of the fact that we don't make that much. In the grand scheme of things, we don't. And we don't charge that much. And actually, people might be richer than you think. Just a thought. Not every area, but in some cases. Janelle, I got rid of makeups but do a set few weeks per year as a flex weeks. Yeah, I do flex weeks too, but they're for the teacher. So that's the distinction I would make there, Janelle. Yeah, they're not flex weeks for the student. That's another policy change you might consider. If you don't currently have a way to take a week off when you need it, then you might put in a flex week. So I have 39 scheduled lessons, as I said, but I only charge for 37 because 2 of those are flex weeks. And that means, and that's a Wendy Stevens thing, by the way, if you look up composecreate.com, she wrote the article about flex weeks. That's a really great one. And so I haven't charged for those 2 extra weeks, and parents understand that, and so I can take those at my discretion during the year. And for me, because, touch wood, I'm reasonably healthy and reliably so, I use those to travel to conferences. That's basically what they're for. But I don't know when the conferences are going to come up, right? So I can't schedule them into the calendar, and so those flex weeks are really important for that, to not be making adjustments at the last minute to people's fees. Rachel, how did I presume this is directed to me, how did I make the switch from traveling to in-studio lessons? I'm working to that. The main way I made the switch, well, I did both, as I say, right from the beginning. And the way I made that switch was to start charging a lot for traveling lessons that I didn't want to do unless I was paid that amount. And that's what switched most people over. Faye, I'm pretty strict about makeup lessons, illness only. Build a makeup week into the year, which is this week. Oh, okay. This year I only had to make up 3 lessons. Good for you. Okay. Yeah, Laurie, I think that's smart. I mean, if you're mostly interested in doing online lessons, then charge enough for your traveling lessons that makes it worth it. And people will make that call on their own. You know, you have to leave it up to them whether it's worth it for them to pay that, or they would prefer to stay online, or Might happen that they'd prefer a different teacher. And that's, you have to see how it goes. When I did raise my rates, by the way, by that large amount for my traveling students, that was a big jump in terms of the travel fee. I did lose one family, but it was one family. And in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot, and it's worth it. Yeah, it sucked to lose them. I liked the kids, I liked working with them, but they didn't value my style of teaching and what I was offering enough. They went with a cheapo traveling teacher, I'm sorry to say, who maybe wasn't, I don't consider as good. I don't know the teacher specifically, sorry, I'm not harping on anyone in particular. I just mean someone who was charging budget prices. And, that's their decision if that's the way they want to go. And it's one family, and in the long run, it's worth it. Okay, I think we've covered a huge amount of ground today. If you have any follow-up questions, you can let me know about it. If I've missed any, I'm sorry. It's been a busy chat today, so it's been awesome to follow it through and hopefully answer as many questions as I possibly could get to. But if you have follow-up questions for me about traveling fees and makeup lessons and fees in general and raising your rates this year, let me know about it. I do want to mention that webinar one more time in case you missed it, which is on in a few hours. So hopefully you can join me again then, maybe, which is at vibrantmusicteaching.com/relevant. We're going to be talking about a completely different topic, choosing repertoire that is relevant for your students and helps them to move forward and is at the right level for them. Okay? And you can also sign up for more resources if you can't join me later at vibrantmusicteaching.com using the coupon code online to get your 1 week trial. Linda, good point. This is what happens on live calls. Thank you for that note. Inclusive pricing. Yes, I did say I would talk about that, and I absolutely will go into that now in our last couple of minutes. So, Linda, inclusive pricing is something I implemented a few years ago. No, more than a few. It must be like 5 or 6 now. And that has been revolutionary for my studio. So that's another change people might consider this year. What that means is that everything, all books, folders, games that I lend to people, everything is included in their fees. So I have a registration fee and then a monthly or semesterly fee. It's all really part of one system. And as we go through the year, if they need new books, if they need a new folder because theirs falls apart, I replace everything. People often ask me about how I calculated that. And it is definitely, again, not an exact science. When I originally calculated it, I did just tally up what each student had used the past year and average it. And it averaged out to be €60. So that's what my registration fee was, which was new. And from then on, I charged a registration fee. It's now €80 if you're curious. That might need to be way higher or way lower where you are. It depends on the cost of books and stationery and all of that stuff, as well as what your students normally get through. But I find that basically across everyone it evens out. And also, for the students who move a bit slower, they get through fewer books, yeah. But I don't feel the need to compensate them, because actually I end up providing extra games and resources and all sorts of other stuff because they're moving a bit slower. Whereas a student who gets through more books, I consider that their bonus for practicing really hard and going, like gangbusters. So that's great. And they might go a little bit over budget, but generally that works out, that evens out at €80. I charge that fee at roughly this time of year. So when I send out my new enrollment forms, they will pay the registration fee in order to secure their spot for September. And that's non-refundable. So that's them reserving their spot in September. Means I have that security that I know which students are really coming back or which are going to quit, and they have to make that decision right now. Thankfully, almost none quit each year, but I want to know now if they're going to, so that I can interview new students in August. And if I let it go and just ask them, they might not get back to me, but the fee makes it actually happen. Okay? So that's how that works for me. and then everything is included. The only thing they ever have to pay extra for is exam fees, because not that many students do exams in my studio, and the ones that do, those fees are pretty big cost, so those do have to be charged separately, but all other costs are included in my fees. So if you're doing something like festivals or competitions that not that many students participate in, you wouldn't roll that in my view, unless it's a low fee. If it's like a fiver, then you could easily roll it in and it doesn't matter who takes it and who doesn't. But if it's a big fee like our exam fees, they can be pretty high for like a grade 8. They're going to be like over 100 quid. I don't know how much they are now, but like they can be between say 40 and 100 and something euro. And so factoring that in when most students don't use it is silly. So I hope that answers your question, Linda, and thank you for the reminder again. And I hope I've answered most people's questions today about fees and given you a good overview. That was really my goal. This isn't meant to be a comprehensive guide. I couldn't possibly do that in one video, but I hope I've given you an overview of it and some food for thought. And I hope you can join me later, maybe, for that webinar and Inside Vibrant Music Teaching using the coupon code. Or on Friday, back here on the YouTube channel, we'll be going live again on Friday to talk about technique in online lessons and how we can teach technique effectively and answer your questions around that. So I hope you can join me then or tonight. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful, magnificent Wednesday. Bye for now, guys.